What's up, podcast world? If you've listened to the previous episodes of the Avidity Fitness podcast, then you know that I like to start each episode with reminding everybody that they have a purpose in life, and if they need anybody to talk to about anything, they can message me on any of my social media platforms. Just type in Avidity Fitness and look for the green pulse logo. And I like to put the suicide prevention lifeline number out there for anybody that needs help right this second, and that is 1-800-273-8255. Do not be afraid to reach out for help. We all need it sometimes. The Avidity Fitness Podcast. Thank you for joining me today on episode 13 of the Avidity Fitness Podcast. Today is July 25th, 2020. We have a tropical depression moving through our area of the United States currently, but looking out the window and it is not too cloudy. It was raining a little bit earlier, and I hear thunder in the background, but it's not really pouring like they had originally forecasted for us. So it's a beautiful Saturday over here, regardless of the weather. Went to work this morning, knocked out my shift, got home, did some foam rolling before I clicked on the podcast, and we're just moving right along. I got a cup full of green tea, some warm green tea, and let's get rolling. I wanted to talk about core stabilization today, and when people hear the word core, they automatically think about those little squares on people's bellies, which it's understandable, but it's weird when you just first think about it. Like, we just want to see squares on our stomachs. And when you think deeper about it, it makes sense because it represents hard work and dedication. You know, you can't just eat pizza all day and play video games and have abs. Like, you have to put work in for them. So when you see that, you know, people admire it because they know that it's not necessarily easy to get abs all the time. So when people hear the word core, I think the automatic thing that they think about and the picture that they have in their mind is the squares on somebody's stomach, which that is the rectus abdominis, and it does play a part in the core, but the core itself is much more than just those squares. It's much more than just the rectus abdominis. Actually the rectus abdominis, which is those little squares, they don't even play the most significant role in what the core does. See, core stabilization is it's the ability for the core musculature to fire and how would you say it? It's the ability of your core musculature to do what it needs to do, to be able to brace and hold and stabilize the body. And the core musculature is defined by the structures that make up the lumbopelvic hip complex. And that includes the lumbar spine, the pelvic girdle, the abs, which is the squares you see, and the transverse abdominis, which is a muscle layer that's underneath the rectus abdominis, so you don't even see it. And that is actually more important than the top layer of abs and the hip joint. And this is where the core musculature, where the lumbopelvic hip complex, where the lumbar spine, the lower back, and the pelvic girdle, abs, and the hip joints, this is where the body's center of gravity is and where all movement originates. So you don't bend over without using core stabilization. You don't take a step forward without core stabilization. You don't squat down onto the toilet without core stabilization. You don't get out of your bed to start your day without core stabilization. And these stabilization systems, they're divided into three different systems: the local stabilization system, the global stabilization system, and the movement system. And knowing the intricacies of all three of those systems is not necessarily all that important, but we'll talk about it real quick. Damn, I forgot to start my timer. Okay, so I'll just run through them real quick just so you get a good quick idea of what they are. The local stabilization system is core stabilizer muscles. I can't talk today. It's core stabilizer muscles that attach to the vertebrae. It's usually slow twitch muscle fibers, and they have a high density of muscle spindles. And it's mainly responsible for things like intravertebral and intrasegmental stability. It limits excessive compression and rotational forces between spinal segments. It aids in proprioception and postural control, which all the stabilization systems do. The primary muscles inside the local stabilization system is the transverse abdominis, which is that layer of abs underneath the superficial layer, the internal obliques, the multififid. I can't talk today. Multifidus, the pelvic floor musculature, and the diaphragm. Now that's the local stabilization system. The global stabilization system are the muscles that attach from the pelvis to the spine. They transfer loads between the upper and the lower body, and they provide stability between the pelvis, the spine, and provide stabilization and eccentric control of the core during functional movements. And the muscles here in the global stabilization system are the quadratus, the psoas major, which is chronically tight and overused in most people, and the external obliques and rectus abdominis, which would be your little squares, gluteus medius, and adductor complex. Now, the third system is the movement system, and these muscles attach the spine and pelvis to the extremities. So from the spine and pelvis to your legs. It's primary responsible for concentric force production and eccentric deceleration. The main muscles are the lats, hip flexors, hamstrings, and the quads. Okay, so that's a lot of different components to the core that a lot of people don't know anything about it because they think of abs. They think core, abs, sit-ups, and everything that I just listed are tiny components to the core and how it works. And it's important to train your core properly, because if the core is weak, then the kinetic chain senses imbalance and forces are not used properly, and this usually leads to compensation, synergistic dominance, and inefficient movements, which all of those can contribute to injury eventually. Compensation patterns, like if you got weak gluteus medius, like, so let's say your glutes are weak and you're trying to do squats and they're not firing properly because you're not training them and they're not being used effectively in your squats. Your lumbar spine, so your lower back, might compensate for where the glutes are lacking, so it starts to become the primary mover. Well, I guess, let me not misspeak, because your legs are the primary mover, but where at the point where your glutes need to be firing and taking a big load of the work on the squat, if they're weak and underused, then something will take over and help get past that movement, that one segment. So your lumbar spine might take over, and that will lead to excessive tightness and pain and even injury in a lot of cases. So I just wanted to, kind of shed some light on what the core is. It's far more than just those little squares that you see on athletes' stomachs and stuff. It's a very important component to the human movement system, and it is vital to overall proper physical health. If you want to be moving with efficiency and you have your longevity in mind, then training your core stabilization is something that should be a priority in your week. Even if it's just a little bit of um, isometric holds for your glutes and stretching out tight hip flexors. Just everybody's individualized. So you need to be in tune with your body and make sure that the core is doing what it needs to do. Now, I got a couple articles here that I pulled up just to help support what I'm talking about here. And this article here is on Princeton Education. So the princeton.edu. And I didn't look too much into, it's Princeton University Athletic Medicine, lumbar core strength and stability exercises. And I'll just scan through it real quick. It doesn't show who wrote it or anything. It just says it's from Princeton. Says right here, low back pain can be the result of many different things. Pain can be triggered by some combination of overuse, muscle strain, and or injuries to muscles, ligaments, and discs that support the spine. Over time, a muscle injury that has not been managed correctly may lead to an overall imbalance in the spine. This can lead to constant tension on the muscles, ligaments, bones, making the back more prone to injury or re-injury. Since low back pain can be caused by injury to various structures in the spine, consult with your physician or athletic trainer, blah, blah, blah. Each diagnosis are treated with different protocols. Therefore, it is important that you consult a medical professional before beginning any strenuous rehabilitation program. Low back exercises and flexibility can be the best treatment option for almost all types of back problems, as it is likely to help restore balance in the spine. Low back exercises concentrate on strengthening with the abdominal muscles to be able to give stabilization of the spine. It says right here, what is my core? Quote unquote core. The core is it's not compromised unless you haven't been doing your exercises. The core is comprised of several groups of muscles, including the transverse abdominis, the multifidus, the diaphragm, pelvic floor muscles. These muscles work together to produce maximum stability in the abdominal and lower back region, as well as coordinate the movement of the arms, legs, and spine. Engaging these muscles is not something that most people do consciously. Pause real quick. What they're saying here is that using the core muscles is not something that people do consciously, especially now in 2020 with an increasingly sedentary society. We're sitting down a lot more, which is curling our core into a lower cross pattern, and it's neurally shutting off a lot of the muscles that we would typically use if we're moving around, bending over to forage for food, running to catch a prey, So the more and more we sit and the less we move, the more disengaged the core muscles will become. Back to the article, it says, therefore, it is important to learn how to effectively co-contract these muscles while performing these rehabilitation exercises. So that's straight from Princeton University, talking about the correlation between lower back pain and your core muscles. And like it's saying that, the muscles aren't engaged consciously because of the increasing amount of time we sit down and don't do anything in society. It's starting to increase the amount of lower back issues that people are having. Now, moreover, I didn't want to just have that article to go by, because even though it's nice, it's well written, it's out of Princeton, it doesn't have like any studies, or nobody's name is behind it, So I pulled up another one, and this is on the United States National Library of Medicine, National Institutes of Health.gov. So I've read a couple different articles on this site. It's a medical site. They got all types of journals and medical sciences, and I'm sure you could find anything that you wanted here. But I found a article written by Dr. Mohammed Akhtar, and it is called "The Effectiveness of Core Stabilization Exercises and Routine Exercise Therapy in Management of Pain and Chronic Low Back Pain." And so let's go through this real quick. They took 120 subjects with non-specific chronic low back pain. The ages were between 20 and 60 years. They had a complaint of chronic low back pain. They were assigned to two different treatment groups, A and B, which were treated with core stabilization exercise and routine physical therapy. Okay, so the results. The study found significant reduction in pain across the two groups. There was a mean reduction of 3.08 and 1.71 across the core stabilization group and routine physical therapy. Okay, so the conclusion: core stabilization exercise is more effective than routine physical therapy exercise in terms of greater reduction in pain in patients with non-specific low back pain. And I'm going to scroll down here. Methods. It was a single-blind, randomized, controlled clinical trial conducted at the outpatient department of the Orthopedics and Spine Institute, Johar Town, Lahore. The study was completed in a time period of 2 years after the approval of synopsis from Institutional Review Board and Ethical Review Committee of University Institute of Physical Therapy. So it says right here, treatment groups. See, this is what I want to see, what they used. So the core stabilization exercise group, subjects allocated to this group were managed with core stabilization exercise targeting deep muscles of the abdomen. This consisted of these exercises. So the types of exercises that they did for core stabilization was pressure feedback core exercise in supine and prone. I'm not sure exactly what that is. Sounds something like a vacuum pose where you're sucking in and engaging your transverse abdominis. Number 2 was the multi-fifth. I struggle with this word every time. Multifidus exercise. 3 is the frontal and side plank exercise. When planks are done properly, it's very good for your core. Pelvic floor exercises, wobble board, oblique twist, TheraBand reverse wood chop exercise, windshield wiper exercises, diaphragm strengthening exercises, which that might be the vacuum holds, single leg standing on foam for the glutes, tandem standing with, rapid arm. That sounds stupid. So, and then they did stretching along with the stabilization exercises like hamstring stretching, calf, hip flexors, hip extensors. And yeah, it's saying that the people that did the core stabilization with their stretching had a significant reduction in that they were experienced with their lumbar spine. To me, that's amazing, because a lot of times we go to doctors and stuff, and all they want to do is send us to surgery or give us medicine to take. And I, for one, believe in a more holistic approach to trying to solve the body's issues, because the body is very adaptable and it wants to survive. So if you give it the environment it needs to correct itself, it will do everything it can to correct itself. So if the problem is instability in the core, which is what supports all movement in the body, if there's instability there, then you're going to have the compensation and the imbalance patterns, which are going to lead to some type of overload somewhere in the body. And it seems typically here in 2020, it's the lower back. And if you're listening to this right now, I would almost bet all my money that either you or somebody that you know well has some type of lower back pain or has had some type of lower back pain. So this is an important topic, I think, moving forward with our health and wellness and longevity, to try to understand a little better, and or understand it even just a little bit, because a lot of people don't even know that your core is actually your hip flexors. Your core is actually your gluteus medius and maximus, but mainly, your medius, your transverse abdominis, like these muscles that you don't see and that you don't hear about your average influencers speaking about, because it's not sexy, right? It's not flashy, it's not um visually stimulating to talk about foam rolling your psoas and your hip flexors, because they might be too tight, causing compensations in the body and causing issues. you know that sounds, to some people it might sound like some like fortune teller type stuff, like palm reading or something. But it's not. It's literally science. It's just the body. It's how we work. Everything's connected. So if something is getting used too much, then it's gonna throw stuff off. That's just the way it works. So um train your core. It's very important. Do your planks, do your vacuum holds. Um Make sure that you're stretching out your hips, your quads, your hamstrings. You want everything to be fluid. You want everything to be healthy. You want proper blood flow to those areas, and you want them to be strong. You want them to be able to hold you up and move you in different planes of motion with optimal efficiency, really. Um so yeah, if you're slacking on any of that and you need help, maybe you got lower back pain, um hit me up. Let me know. Send me a message on any of my social media platforms. You can email me at fitnessforeveryperson@gmail.com. I would be happy to put together um, a little routine for you. Like, you're going to need to go talk to your doctor and stuff, just to make sure that you don't have any like obvious injuries that need like professional medical treatment, right? So as long as you're cleared for exercise, then I can put together a plan. I will get with you. We'll do a free consultation, and I'll get all the info I need from you, like your history, your daily routines, stuff like that, the times of days, and how much time in a day you have to train. And we'll put together something that will help strengthen those core muscles and hopefully reduce a lot of the back pain and get you moving properly again. So just let me know. Hit me up. It's Saturday. There's fights tonight. UFC. I don't usually talk about sports and other people's businesses on this podcast, but might as well. I think I'm only at like 20 minutes on this show. So uh let me just keep it rolling a little bit. Let's talk it. Let's talk about what's going on. These UFC fights. I love the UFC. Martial arts is a big part of my life. It's what keeps me centered, driven, and moving forward, even on my worst days when I don't feel like doing anything. So I've been watching cage fighting in the UFC since uh like 2000 for a long time now. And so it's kind of a big thing over at my house. I like to get all my training done and then throughout the day get everything that I needed done, all my writing done, cleaning done, work done, workouts done. So by the time the fights come on in the evening, I'm just relaxing. I try to get into a real zen mood, meditate, and I just watch, the pro martial artists, put on a show. So if any of you are into martial arts, let me know. Who's your favorite fighter? What's your favorite discipline? You like jiu-jitsu? You like kempo? You like karate? What do you like? Taekwondo? What do you like? Ninjutsu? What's up? Ninjutsu is some cool stuff. Yeah, so that's what I'm doing today. Because I'm already done with work. Actually, as soon as I'm done with this podcast, I'm going to do a little bit of training and get some yoga in and probably some breathing exercises. I just tried Wim Hof's breathing exercise on YouTube the other day, last week. I did it twice last week, once on like Friday and once on Sunday or something like that. And it's awesome. It's my first time ever doing something like that. So I highly recommend it to everybody that's in the health game. Just to try it out. Wim Hof. I mean, if you don't know who Wim Hof is, just look him up. Google him. He's a legend. Um, and I've always known about him. I've always heard about his breathing techniques for when he does his like cold challenges where he sits in like glacier water for like an hour or whatever. And he talks a lot about his breathing techniques. And I know about like the yoga masters in India and stuff that can like heat their body up in a cold room just by like meditating hard and doing like that fire breath. So it's all really really fascinating. I just never actually like got into it myself until finally I was like, let me try this thing out. And it was all it was the beginner's exercise. It's only like 10 minutes long. I'm assuming that the pace he put you threw in the beginners one is like really light compared to the others. I haven't gone up, but it was still intense. It was only 10 minutes, 3 rounds of his technique, and I was like I had a burst of energy. I can't explain it. Like my fingertips kind of started tingling in my head. I got kind of lightheaded, but not in a delirious way. Just like kind of lightheaded, but still mentally there for sure. And it was awesome. I'm gonna keep at it. I'm gonna do it at least once a week. I'm gonna try to do it 2, maybe 3 times a week, maybe right after some meditation. I think it's really healthy for the body to get connected to it in that way. I mean, Swami Rama, I think that was his name, that yoga master that he could he could while he was doing his breathing techniques, he could ramp his heartbeat up to 300 beats per minute. That's amazing. And then he could slow it back down like with just his willpower. And there's stories of him sitting in caves, like cold caves, and he could heat his palms up. So he would be doing the meditation and the breathing exercises, and his palms would get really hot. And then he could cool sections off. So like if he wanted to cool the center of his palm off, he could do that. If he wanted to cool just his pinky finger off, he could do that. Or just his thumb, he could do that. Half his hand, he would cool it off just by the power of his mind. It's amazing. Look into Wim Hof, the breathing exercises. Look into Swami Rama and all the amazing feats that he used to be able to do with just the power of his mind and meditation and breathing. Um, I think that's all I got. Watch the UFC fights tonight. Um, Message me if you need help with your core strengthening and stabilization. We'll get you on that. I still got stickers for sale, $3 a piece, 2 for $5. It's an awesome cutout of the Avidity Fitness logo. It's perfect for laptops. It's perfect for Yeti cups. Um, for stop signs. If you feel like putting it on a stop sign for your neighborhood to see, it's perfect for binders. I got one on like all my binders that I use, or not binders, spiral notebooks that I put my notes in and stuff. It's cool. It's a slick logo. It's Avidity Fitness. Come on, like we're here, we're flexing, we're taking charge of our physical and mental health. This is an awesome brand to promote. It's slick, and come on, be honest. If you put that on your Yeti cup, it makes it look like you're actually trying, right? People see that and they're like, "Oh, okay, you're part of something. What you doing over there?" And then you let them know, Avidity Fitness. Like this is where it's at. We're kicking no BS. We're trying to learn and help each other and spread the message of positivity and strength and take control of our lives. And then they're going to be like, word, where did you get that? Let me check it out.